Hello, everyone. Good evening. Happy Saturday to you all. For some reason, my hat is down here. I've decided to do this in full pain of the cold. Don't know. It's just one of those evenings. I thought, you know what? Let's brave it. I've also going to try to make sure I hold these up so that they don't rattle against my scarf. I do read the comments and I do listen. Connor's going to give me a wave. Wave, Connor. There we are. Look at that. That's exciting. Look. Right, there you go. There's the scoreline. No more putting it off. The players who didn't feature, you could possibly see Todd Campbell's jacket. It's a fetching purple and white number. The players were out there training for a while, actually, after the game. That was not the players who played in the football match, obviously. They're recovering. Insert your own punchline there. But yeah, the ones who didn't feature who were on the bench have been out getting a run around, which was interesting to take in. Kind of buzzy. But yes, what an evening this was. So yeah, Norwich have lost 2-0 at home here to Blackburn Rovers, who started the game fourth, I think. No, they were third and Norwich were fourth, weren't they? It was probably a bit different after this afternoon's championship games, but the sentiment was there before the game week started, if you like. And Norwich came unstuck. And there's lots, obviously, to talk about in terms of the atmosphere and the fallout and all of those things, and Dean Smith, and I will get to those in a tickle. But what I did want to address was actually the game, because I think there's some really important elements here, and nothing will really, or maybe get a little bit lost because of the situation of everything that went on around it. Norwich were not very good. They didn't move the ball particularly well, and I'm sure some of the circumstances around the game played a part in that, in terms of the atmosphere and the fear and unease that would have created, of course. And Dean Smith mentioned that as well. Some of the stats will probably look okay in terms of Norwich maybe taking some shots and, having more of the ball. But to actually watch the game of football, Norwich were second best in some really key areas that they should not be second best, as far as I could see. Firstly, I thought Blackburn worked really hard and they pressed really well. Norwich were really quite terrible at progressing the ball effectively through the pitch most of the game, because generally Blackburn worked so hard. They ran hard. They seemed to know what Norwich were going to do, and Norwich didn't. None of the players really seemed to figure out a way to change that or to make it different or to make it more effective at any point. And that includes the head coach and the coaching staff. It didn't see anything that progressed anything to make Norwich better as the game wore on. They just got a bit more desperate and threw more attacking players on. You have to take into consideration here game state. Game state, as John McKenzie off of TIFO would say, is the fact that Norwich were behind after 5 minutes. Absolute nightmare start. And although I don't think it was the best thing for Dean Smith to say after the game, that basically people were waiting for it to go wrong so they could boo. In essence, part of the issue is that if that situation arises, the place will go. The place is not going to say, oh, quick, let's get behind the lads now. It's just not in that place. And that is for a variety of reasons that I've gone over a long time. And it comes from all sorts of elements. And it's basically why you may well, all of you, some of you out there, not want Dean Smith to be the head coach, but I can guarantee you the head coach change is not going to solve the issues around this football club at the moment. They run far deeper and they are more complicated and more embedded, I'm afraid. Maybe it'll be a start. I don't know. I'm not really sure, because I see a bigger picture that doesn't get rectified by a change of head coach, and sadly. But that's just my view. You all have different views and opinions too, of course. So yes, Norwich found themselves having to chase the game, and not really ever looking like they were in the sort of control or form or confidence to affect a positive outcome from that situation. It really scuppered them, and they looked all at sea for the most part of that. But that's not an excuse, because at Swansea last weekend, the game state that Norwich were leading after 2 minutes effectively gave them the perfect narrative that Dean Smith wanted, that they were so much better without the ball. It was there because Norwich just had to protect themselves for the entirety of the game. It didn't matter. They didn't have a shot in the second half because they just protected themselves. So you have it, both ways, really. Norwich were advantageous for it in terms of the game state and that narrative last week. Today, it was a disaster for them, and Blackburn did a really good job, I thought, of defending their box, of managing the game. Do I think they're the best side in the world? No. Do I think they worked really hard to give themselves a reaction from the previous defeat at home to Preston, which was a bit of a shock for them? Absolutely. And did they kind of eclipse Norwich in some of those ways? Yes. Because I'm not going to sit here and be entitled about what Norwich are anymore, because Norwich are at the moment a side that's going to probably be able to scrape inside the top 6. They are not winning this division, and they're not going to finish in the top 2. Because I just don't think the players have it in them, whether that's in terms of their hunger, in terms of their effectiveness on the pitch to manage situations, in terms of their responsibility, in terms of their drive, and in terms of what's going on around those players, in terms of the way they are being, they don't really look like they're coached in a way that is making them effective. They look like this progressive learning coaching that is creating a lot of mistakes that maybe they will rectify themselves, maybe they'll work through in a few weeks, but you're not going to get promoted under that in those circumstances, as far as I can see. And as I've said numerous times before, the atmosphere, there is no one pulling in the same direction. There's a few, but there's not many. And that's just a disaster for trying to achieve something as a collective spirit. I cannot believe people have not twigged that. I cannot believe someone would have gone into this season thinking, we'll win a few games and we will be all right. Because I said there have been periods this season where they've won a few games and they still haven't been particularly welcomed. So here we are. We are here at this point now. I haven't looked at the table. The first goal is really unfortunate in some ways. It's not tremendous reaction to the ball in. It's an own goal of Ben Gibson, and I think you can understand as a player, if you have a moment like that, it can be very difficult to get on top of the game from that point on. I thought Ben struggled at times with that. It's just my opinion. There were no positive performance, bar possibly the effort that Josh Sargent was putting in. But again, he's playing in a formation where he's playing wide. And Teemu's doing really well up top. I think it's really difficult, but I would just rather see the two of them play much closer together essentially, because I still think Josh is wasted. And at the moment, he's looking like the best player on the pitch in terms of where he is in his career, quality, development. He's on and up. So, that probably says a lot. And I'm not being disrespectful here in terms of Josh, because I think although Josh is obviously operating better at this level, but it does signify a drop off of the other players. Isaac Hayden was poor. He was substituted in the second half. Liam Gibbs comes on and is eager and does some good things. So that's a slight positive if you want one. But yeah, I'm out after that. Some of that was probably a rant, wasn't it? So yeah, the first goal was really unfortunate. There's a hint of misfortune to the second goal, which happens quite late in the game, very late in the game. Tyrhys Dolan, who was bright and breezy for most of the game, deflected shot past Gunn, not much he could do. Deflected off Sam McCallum, who I thought had a tricky afternoon. When Dimi Yanulis wasn't on the bench. No Todd Cantwell in the squad, but he was in this training session out there that happened. It sounds like they were just selection issues. I don't think there's any other fitness issues. And that's probably all of that for the game. We had a couple of scraps. Kenny McLean got a silly booking, which were just born out of frustration of the circumstance and just kind of the signs you see when a team is losing their heads, really. And that can be from frustration of it not working out, the reaction from the crowd. There was 2 scraps in 2 minutes in injury time. One was over there there was a ball boy nearby, and I just really hope that he wasn't sort of stuck in between that happening around him, because that would be horrible. For them. I haven't really seen it back, and I might make an effort to do that now, or when I get home. Anyway, I've got a bit of writing to do as well. On the Ball podcast on Monday night will be my last action before Christmas, because I'm off. So keep an eye out for that on Monday night. I'm sure it'll be bright and breezy and fun. And yeah, the other 2 remaining talking points are that there were holes in the ground from kickoff. I would say it was probably doing well to be up to 25,000 in here from kickoff. I would say there were a lot more empty seats before halftime, and not everyone who left at that point came back to watch the second half. By the end of the game, there were a lot more empty seats. The club didn't give out the attendance. That's not the first time they've done that this season. So that's just a thing that happens. But, there were several thousand, I would say, empty seats. People are starting to vote with their feet or do other things. It is the last weekend before Christmas. People have got other things to do. There are no trains. It's on the telly. It's a late night. It's a late kickoff relatively. They are all factors. But that's not, also the situation is the factor as well. And then the only remaining element is that, the Barclay and the Snake Pit, especially vociferously, in great number, sang. Basically, that they didn't want Dean Smith to be head coach anymore, and that they didn't like the football. We did have a debate about whether they said shit or shite. I'm a veteran of this job. I think I can say that after 15 years, and obviously I've been going to games watching Norwich since I was 8, which is like millions of years. I'm very old, but it is a point that I don't recall any manager winning over the situation from the point that we've witnessed tonight. It just doesn't happen. It may prolong and drag out. It depends on the willfulness of those in charge to change it. I, deep down, right now, do not expect people above Dean Smith at Carrow Road to make a managerial change the week before Christmas. One of the reasons, I'll let you guess. It's a lot of work, isn't it? So I don't see it. I might be proven wrong. Some people might do things to prove me wrong at the moment. Who knows? But I don't see it. The next game is away from home at Luton on Boxing Day. Go win there, and then you come back to Carrow Road with a good chance to win again, and everything's great again. Reading were awful, by the way, last night at Birmingham. So yes, I've run on a long time, and I need to wrap up. But it's very rare you see success come from the ashes of a night like tonight. But then, who in football doesn't want to be the first to do something special? Everyone thinks they can. Everyone thinks that they've got it in them to make it happen. And, there are redemption stories all over the place in all sorts of ways. Who am I to cast judgment? No, I'm just here to talk. And that talking will now cease. I will see you later. Thank you for all your support throughout this year, although it's not the end of the year. But what I do want to say is a very Merry Christmas to you all. I hope you have a brilliant time. Get all your present buying and stuff done in the week, and then enjoy a fantastic Christmas. I shall see you at Kenilworth Road, if I can speak, on Boxing Day night, which my wife is absolutely delighted about. But I will be there. So before that, have a brilliant Christmas. See you for the On the Ball podcast on Monday. And until then, let's rid ourselves of that misery and embrace the joy of Sunday, which is not a football day in terms of Norwich City, but it is the World Cup final. Let's see how that goes. Enjoy that. Much love to you all, and I'll see you all very soon. Boo! Bye-bye. It's too soon to joke. Too soon. Don't joke.